The old woman stood alone in the middle of the pouring rain, her thin coat soaked through, her hands trembling as thunder shook the sky. Dozens of cars rushed past without slowing down. People glanced at her through foggy windows, then looked away. She seemed invisible to the world. But one struggling young woman carrying 2 grocery bags stopped without thinking, even though she barely had enough to survive herself. That single act of kindness would change 2 lives forever in ways no one could have imagined. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness still has the power to change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness too. Your support helps us continue bringing heartfelt stories that remind the world compassion still exists. The sun had disappeared behind thick gray clouds long before afternoon ended. Heavy rain flooded the sidewalks as people hurried home, trying to escape the growing storm. Among them walked Maren Ellis, a 28-year-old woman whose life had become a series of disappointments she quietly carried every single day. She worked long hours cleaning offices downtown before spending evenings helping at a neighborhood bakery for extra income. Even with 2 jobs, the rent for her tiny apartment swallowed almost everything she earned. After paying bills, she often counted coins before entering the grocery store, carefully deciding which necessities she could afford and which would have to wait another week. Despite everything, Maren had never allowed hardship to harden her heart. She had grown up believing that people were measured not by what they owned but by what they gave when they had almost nothing left. Her late grandmother had raised her with those values, reminding her that kindness often arrived quietly and unexpectedly. Those words remained with Maren every day, even when life seemed determined to prove otherwise. As she crossed a nearly empty street toward her apartment building, a flash of lightning revealed an elderly woman sitting alone on a bus bench. Rainwater poured from the shelter's broken roof, leaving the woman completely drenched. Her silver hair clung to her face, and her small suitcase rested beside her like the last piece of a forgotten life. Most people would have assumed someone else would stop. Most people kept walking. Maren hesitated for only a heartbeat before stepping toward the bench. The closer she came, the more she realized the woman's condition. Her lips had turned pale from the cold, and exhaustion filled her eyes. There was no umbrella, no phone, and no sign that anyone was coming for her. Without worrying about the inconvenience or the cost, Maren gently offered the woman shelter in her own apartment. It was only 1 room with peeling paint, a tiny kitchen, and furniture collected from thrift stores, but it was warm and dry. The elderly woman accepted with quiet gratitude, her tired smile carrying a sadness that words could never fully explain. The walk back felt longer than usual because the rain became almost unbearable. Water splashed over their shoes as wind pushed against them from every direction. By the time they reached the apartment, both were soaked. Maren immediately searched through her small closet until she found an oversized sweater and a clean blanket. She prepared hot vegetable soup using nearly everything left in her pantry, pretending not to notice that tomorrow's meals would now be uncertain. The elderly woman introduced herself as Eleanor Whitmore. She spoke gently, with remarkable grace despite her difficult circumstances. She never complained about the storm or her situation. Instead, she thanked Maren repeatedly for treating a stranger with dignity when everyone else had looked away. That evening became strangely peaceful. Rain tapped softly against the windows while steam rose from 2 bowls of soup. Maren listened as Eleanor shared memories of traveling across the country in her younger years, speaking about beautiful gardens, quiet lakes, and communities where neighbors still knew each other by name. Yet she carefully avoided explaining why she had been alone in such terrible weather. Maren sensed there was a painful story hidden beneath Eleanor's calm expression, but she respected her silence. Later that night, Maren spread blankets on the only bed and chose to sleep on the old couch herself. Before turning off the lights, she noticed Eleanor quietly staring at a faded family photograph hanging on the wall. It showed Maren beside her grandmother years earlier, smiling without a single worry in the world. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, though she quickly wiped them away before saying goodnight. The following morning arrived with brilliant sunshine. The storm had vanished, leaving the neighborhood washed clean beneath a bright blue sky. Marin prepared simple toast and tea before getting ready for work. Eleanor insisted she felt much stronger and thanked her once again for opening her home without asking for anything in return. Just as Marin reached for her keys, 3 sleek black vehicles slowly pulled up outside the apartment building. Neighbors peeked through curtains while children stopped playing to watch. A well-dressed man stepped out, followed by several others wearing business suits. The group approached the building with remarkable urgency. Moments later, there was a knock at the door. Standing outside was a distinguished gentleman whose worried expression instantly transformed into overwhelming relief when he saw Eleanor. Without hesitation, he embraced the elderly woman with tears in his eyes. It became clear they shared a bond far deeper than friendship. The man introduced himself as Victor Whitmore. He explained that Eleanor was his mother and that she had become separated from her caregivers during unexpected travel complications caused by the storm. Their family had searched throughout the entire night, contacting hospitals, police stations, shelters, and emergency services without success. They had feared the unimaginable. Victor then looked around Marin's tiny apartment. He noticed the worn furniture, patched curtains, and nearly empty kitchen shelves. Yet what stood out most was the warmth inside those modest walls. His mother had been treated not as an inconvenience but as family. Eleanor quietly explained everything that had happened. She described how strangers had ignored her in the rain while one exhausted young woman with almost nothing had offered everything she could. She spoke about the warm soup, the clean blanket, and the comfortable bed Marin had insisted she use. More than any material comfort, Eleanor described how safe she had felt. Victor struggled to hide his emotions. As the founder of one of the region's largest construction companies, he had spent decades building businesses, donating to charities, and supporting community programs. Yet hearing his mother's story reminded him that genuine compassion could never be purchased. Before leaving, Victor handed Marin a simple business card, thanking her sincerely. She accepted it politely without expecting anything further. After all, helping Eleanor had never been about receiving a reward. Life returned to normal, or at least it seemed that way. Marin continued working both jobs, waking before sunrise and returning home long after dark. Bills continued arriving, her old refrigerator struggled to stay cold, and she quietly worried about another rent increase. She never mentioned the wealthy family to anyone because she assumed their paths would never cross again. A week later another knock echoed through the apartment. This time Victor returned carrying several folders. He explained that after speaking extensively with his mother, he had spent days learning about Marin's life. He discovered excellent recommendations from employers, years of honest work, and a reputation for helping neighbors whenever possible. Everyone described her the same way, dependable, humble, and extraordinarily kind. Victor then presented an opportunity that left Marin speechless. His company was launching a community housing initiative designed to renovate neglected neighborhoods while creating affordable homes for struggling families. They needed someone to coordinate volunteer outreach, communicate with residents, and ensure every family felt respected throughout the process. Skills could be taught, Victor explained, but compassion could not. He believed Marin possessed the rare quality the project truly needed. The salary exceeded everything Marin had ever earned. It included health benefits, professional training, and opportunities for advancement. At first she assumed there had been some mistake. She had no university degree and very little professional experience outside cleaning buildings and helping at the bakery. Victor smiled and reminded her that character often mattered more than credentials. The greatest leaders inspired trust through their actions long before they spoke. After several emotional days of consideration, Marin accepted. The months that followed transformed her life in remarkable ways. She worked tirelessly, listening to families facing eviction, organizing volunteers, and ensuring elderly residents never felt forgotten during construction projects. She remembered every difficult day she had endured and treated everyone with patience and understanding. Her dedication inspired entire teams. Volunteers frequently stayed longer because Marin worked beside them instead of directing from a distance. Local businesses donated materials after witnessing her sincerity. Families who had once lost hope slowly found reasons to smile again as abandoned houses became welcoming homes. Eleanor visited many project sites, proudly watching the young woman who had once offered her a bowl of soup now changing hundreds of lives. She often told volunteers that greatness revealed itself through ordinary moments when no one expected recognition. One crisp autumn afternoon, Marin stood outside the grand opening of the 100th renovated home completed through the initiative. Children laughed in freshly planted gardens while parents embraced one another with grateful tears. Looking around, Marin realized this beautiful moment had begun with one simple decision made during a terrible storm. She thought about how easily she could have walked past that lonely bus bench. She could have convinced herself someone else would help. She could have protected the little food she had left or worried about inviting a stranger into her apartment. Instead, she had chosen compassion over convenience. That single choice had created a ripple reaching far beyond her own life. Years later, whenever journalists asked Victor how the housing initiative became so successful, he rarely spoke about business strategies or financial investments. Instead, he told the story of a rainy afternoon when an unknown young woman proved that humanity still existed. He believed the company's greatest investment had never been money but trust placed in someone whose heart refused to become bitter. Marin never considered herself extraordinary. She still remembered counting coins in grocery stores and wondering whether life would ever become easier. Success never erased those memories. Instead, they reminded her why every struggling person deserved kindness rather than judgment. One evening she returned to the same bus stop where everything had begun. The bench had been repaired, flowers surrounded the sidewalk, and a small plaque nearby carried a simple message: one act of kindness can shelter an entire future. She smiled quietly, knowing those words were true. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that even the smallest act of compassion can change someone's destiny, please like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness too, so together we can spread more stories that inspire hope and kindness around the world. Special request: tell us in the comments, what is one act of kindness someone showed you that you will never forget? As the evening sun painted the sky with golden light, Marin walked home with peaceful gratitude, understanding that true wealth had never been measured by money, luxury, or status. It had always been measured by the willingness to open a door when someone else had nowhere left to go. And somewhere, beyond every storm that life brings, there is always another chance for kindness to create a miracle that no one sees coming.